Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast. This week, I'm talking to filmmaker Andrea M. Catinella. So, when I look at your IMDb, when I look at your career, and I might be reading it completely wrong, but it kind of looks split in two to me. It looks like you've got genre films, you've got horror films, you've got Piglet, Hook. There's another one, Brutal, I think it was called. You've got these kind of movies, and then on the other side, you've got romantic comedies, sort of family films. Explain that. How does that happen?
Well, I think I didn't want to stick with a genre, despite the fact that I like horror movies, action movies. But I found myself being offered these romantic comedies, and I quite enjoy directing those. And I think like it gives me. I think like as a director, you can specialize in a genre, but this doesn't mean you cannot do any other genre. I have like some example like Sean Levy, who started with romantic comedies, family movies, and then went into action movies, thriller, did Deadpool. So I feel like every movie teach you something, every genre teach you something, and it's interesting understanding how from the technical aspects, how what kind of shots you use in a rom-com or in a family movie, how to create tension in an horror movie, and this give me like a sort of insight of everything of every genre.
Yeah. And I also noticed the thing that I'm interested in digging into with the horror movies, is you've got a couple in there which are doing something that seems to be like a new, well, not new, last sort of 5 years is existing IP. So Hook, for example, or Piglet, using those to get a bit of interest, but then kind of creating a horror movie around them. Did that is that something you've come up with, or have you been hired onto those projects to direct them?
I've been hired onto this project. I've been offered Piglet, Hook, and Mousebot to direct them, and this was like I think it was in 2024, and it was a very interesting year, kind of like hectic here. And at the same time, I was prepping for Bait, which is an horror movie, but it's not an existing IP. Is not a public domain character, and is more like on the thriller vibe, gory under some aspects. So I thought that somehow, when I've been offered this movie, the first one was Piglet. I felt like, okay, I mean, it has been done already, but why not give a different take? Why not give like my idea of Piglet, and then it came Hook and Mouseboat. And I feel like every of these film has its own particularity, from the way it's shot, from the color palette, from the for example, when I received Piglet, I went chatting with the DP, and I said, okay, I want to shoot this in anamorphic. I want to give this kind of look. I want to recreate this kind of 80s slasher, gory B movie look, which is something that I love. I'm a huge enthusiast of those Tarantino B movies, like Grindhouse and Planet Terror. Um, and I felt, okay, why not doing that? So I can give like my take. And somehow I had fun doing it because it reminded me those 80s movie, which I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So, do you feel like, because there's a lot of other movies in your back catalogue, did having that existing IP help a lot when it came to people actually getting to see the movie?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I felt like this was a part of my career, which now I progressed into another direction. But I felt was an important part of my career, especially when I think like Piglet was like my fourth feature film or something, and they helped me. I gained more audience. I didn't know there was like a fan base for this movie. There was like a certain target. I had lots of conversation with people from Brazil, Mexico, US. They were like already fan of these movies, and some of them they enjoyed watching Piglet. I had nice message, positive review, and it gave me that little step ahead. And that's why when I did Mousebot, I felt like, okay, I think my time with this movie, and I'm really grateful for that, is done now. But I will always be grateful to this kind of movie. And somehow I think like, even now I'm taking huge examples as like James Cameron, which I'm not even comparing. But when you see there, he did Piranha, and then he went and did Terminator, Titanic, and it's sort of fun movies to make, and we had so much fun on set. And one thing that I really liked and appreciate of this movie is because many of the things that are like quite artisanal, made many of the killing, much of the gore is real. There's like even on Piglet, there's like very little VFX. There's actually two VFX shot, even if some people thought like the blood is VFX, is not. It's like it's all SFX, it's all fake blood on set, and we had to, experiment with the location that we had, with the props that we had, with the tools that we had on location. So yeah, I think it teach me a lot.
Yeah. And it's good that you've got these, what you might, because back when they first started happening, these kind of existing IP ones, I don't know if maybe Winnie the Pooh was the first one, but you look at it, you look at the poster and you're like, oh, I know what this is going to be. It's not going to be very good. It's going to be just cash in. But it seems like a lot of effort goes into these movies to actually make them quite good and stylish, which is good. You can't phone it in on those. So what was I going to ask you? So I was going to say, with these jobs you're getting on these horror movies, and also the romantic comedies and all the other stuff, how does that process work? Is it all people you already know and have already worked with, or are you ever going into pitch to direct these movies?
Uh, I think like everything started in a way. I was working full time in television, and then I quit my job because it was like 9 to 5 production job, and I another experience that gave me lots of insight and lots of values. And the first one I actually applied on Monday, and it was Highland of the Dolls 2, which was the sequel of another horror movie or indie movie, micro budget, and that was the first one. And then like I think like it was more word of mouth. Um, Social media helped a lot. I connected with great producer. I connected with Rebecca, who then gave me Bait, and all these movies been like all word of mouth. Um, Maybe some producer they seen like trailer, stills, BTS on Instagram, got in touch, had a couple of meetings, and yeah. So, and then when you are on set, and the crew, you work well with the crew, you work well with the actors, you connect, and we talk a lot about networking, but networking also happen on set. There are like in so many movies, even in my last movies, where I find like, okay, this Steadicam operator is great. I want to work with him again. Or this gaffer is great. I will call him for the next production. So that's how it happens, or how it happened to me so far. There are movies that I'm writing and that I'm pitching around. I'm finishing writing a war movie. I have another movie that I'm writing myself, which is more of a psychological thriller, or there's like gore at the same time.
Mhm.
But sometimes writing takes me a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it, writing? It's
It,
it's
it,
it's it's not as fun as directing. I enjoy directing much more than writing. Writing is difficult.
Writing is like, and it's difficult. At the same time, I find myself writing a script, finishing the first draft, putting the first draft on the side, going to the next one because I have another idea, then being booked for a job, and then finish the job, doing all the prep as a director, etc., and then go back on the script. I'm like, now I have something more to add on the script, or maybe, I feel like the script grow up with you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sometimes going back to an old screenplay, or sometimes giving it space, gets you out of your own head and gives you a little bit of perspective and ability to kind of view it as a whole rather than this mishmash of ideas.
Absolutely.
So I also noticed that you're still in between all these features. You're still making some shorts. Why is that? Why are you still doing short films?
I think like my last short film that I did was the short called "We Need to Talk," and the reason why I think like it's my third for short film, and I haven't done any short film after that one. I don't think I will make some more, or who knows? It depends. But the reason why is that the producer and writer Vanessa Bailey, she approached me with this script, which was a very um, it was a different story. It was like a dramatic story, which I don't want to spoil that much. And when I got offered the script, I loved the story, and I was coming back. It was straight after Mouseboat. So I was like, after all this blood and gore, and because it came like literally that summer was like Bait, Piglet, Hook, Mouseboat, and then I had the shot and was one day shooting, and it was, yeah, one day shooting, tight budget. I had a formidable crew, my amazing DP, and I worked already with Vanessa, so I accepted straight away. Loved the story, and now he's doing the festival run. He won some awards. So I feel like when it comes to short, if you have like a great story, if you have something that is like 1 day, 2 days shooting, why not?
Yeah. So it sounds like it
Keep
was a
you
bit of
practicing
bit of a palate cleanser from all the horror. You've got to
a
do
little
this.
bit. It was
Yeah.
needed.
So the other thing I saw is that you've judged on, I think it's the London Independent Film Festival. So for filmmakers entering festivals, now that you've judged one, what are festivals looking for, and how? I guess first of all, how are you scoring films? Are you because I've judged a festival before. You get a massive spreadsheet and you get lots of different categories, and it's all done with numbers and ratings. How is the London Independent Film Festival judged, first of all?
This year I'm judging for both London Independent and the Richmond Film Festival, and this is my second time with the London Independent. I think like because I've been like I won the London Independent Film Festival in 2000, I think it was 2024, with one of my short, and with the couple of shots that I did, I applied to some festival. I won some, I lost some. Some of them I was like quite that went bad, unfortunately, and some were unexpected. So I always try to empathize with the filmmaker first of all, trying to understand the work and the effort that there is like behind a short film, especially if it's like a first time filmmaker, if it's like a team. I try to see the production value and the kind of effort that is putting in some short. And during both edition of the London Independent, I've seen that there's so much talent out there, which is like, and so many times I've been stuck between two or three films where I'm like, it's so, because you give a rating to those films, and the highest score, one of the films needs to have the highest score. And there's been like a couple of times where I had like two or three films that were so hard to judge because there was quality. There's quality in all the films, because all the films they get the selection. There is high quality on everything. Uh, First of all, I try to start with the story, and the way the story is communicated, the pacing, the editing, a lot is quite crucial for me. And there are a couple of films where like I know the message. There are like some films where the message is like about drugs, about social difficulties, but I try to look for bold storytelling and the way the story is told by the filmmaker. So if it's something unusual and there's like different, it's not like a plain story with a beginning, um, second act, and third act. If it's something that okay, and I had a few times where there were films that were like that comes a lot from mix of directing, editing, music, and pacing of the film. If there is something unusual that capture me, I'm like, okay, that's the one.
Yeah.
I try to see all the aspects, starting from the story to the directing, pacing, cinematography, production value, and I've seen so many times. One of the things that I see a lot is when the budget is very tight, and location are what they are, but they use the remake of the location, how the location is set, how, and I've seen many films where they use the same location twice, but the set design changed completely. So for me,
Mm.
this does a lot.
Yeah. And is there anything you see, mistakes that people make that you think could be easily fixed, or things you think, oh, I wish they'd done this instead, or I wish they'd spent more time on this aspect of the film?
Um, yes, and I am an art critic myself. Usually, I notice editing mistakes, and I had this on some of my films, where you finish the post production, you send the final cut to the distributor, or okay, it's done and delivered, and then I'm like, oh gosh, I could have edited this way, or I could have told the editor, why don't we change this, or even speaking with all other colleagues, we watch some of my films and I watch theirs, and sometimes I have great feedback and like, oh, why don't did you do the editing this way? And I'm like, usually it's editing mistakes. I don't call them mistakes because everything is a learning curve, but because I'm the first one that after the film is been locked, I keep rewatching it, trying to find those like little issues or learning curves, and being like, oh gosh, this could have done better. This would have changed the pacing. If I should have cut this one, I should have stayed longer. Um, and I think it's very important to give this feedback to the other filmmakers as well. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's very important. I think it's a constant learning, and it's part of the process. So that's like my major thing. So all the rest, I think, is something that shots that are like overexposed, or I think like these things happen, especially when it comes to indie filmmaking, when you have like a tight schedule, when you have the location for 8 hours and you need to run. So I try to not be too demanding on those things, or be demanding in the way you can.
Yeah. And it's interesting, that editing thing, there's two elements. I think when you're looking at your own work and you're trying to judge if it's edited well, you've for me anyway, the way I do it is obviously show it to somebody else who's going to give you a honest opinion and give you a good critique, but also I find you have to sort of feel the edit. So you don't look at the detail, you just kind of feel it, you watch it, feel like you're drawn into it. And those moments when you're kind of pulled out, you've almost got to make a mental note of them and then go back in later and tweak. There'll be tiny changes you can make that really make a big difference on how that's going to emotionally draw you in. But it is almost like a sixth sense. You have to kind of feel the flow of the edit and try and work out why you don't feel a certain way at a certain point when you
Absolutely.
should. It's
Absolutely. I can bring you an example. In one of the movie that I've done, and as a director, I'm like a lot in the editing room with the editor. I do a lot of editing session. I'm really involved. But there is one movie, without saying the name, where there was like I had this scene. There was like a conversation between two characters, and it was like a little bit of a longer conversation, but where you understand who's the villain in that conversation, and it's a quite important scene. And when I was in the meeting with my editor, I was like, I should stay in this like wide shot, even if it was like a 1 minute wide shot. I think I should stay in this wide shot where I don't see the character very well, and it's fine because I feel this way. And my editor was like, fine. Then I rewatch it, and I'm like, maybe you know what? And this is like a mistake that I did. I'm like, maybe we should do close up, and a medium to short. So we have like, I was thinking more on the pacing side. I'm like, maybe it's too boring staying on the wide shot. Then the movie gets done, get released. I go back rewatching it, and I'm like, I should have stayed in that wide shot.
Yeah,
I should have
yeah, yeah,
stayed in that wide shot. And even on the last movie that I directed, where we wrapped 3 weeks ago, I think. This time I had the editor on set, which is something that I prefer. And because I was planning some long shot and there were like some transition between a scene and another, some long shot were quite complicated. We had long shot with the Steadicam, and then we needed to match to the next scene in order to create a flow. And it was nice to having in some scene the editor next to me behind the screen, and like, hey, do we have everything? Should we have this shot? Should we have this transition? I think like the relationship director editor is very important, and it's also good to have a creative point of view from the editor.
yeah, absolutely. And I guess what you've identified there is the other half of the issue. So there's watching the edit, feeling the edit, and kind of trying to figure out where it's going wrong. But the other side is if you spend too long watching a scene, you might inadvertently become, like you say, you feel, oh, am I getting bored with this? I've seen it so many times. Do I need to change it? When sometimes you just need to leave it alone. It's not easy, and that's where I think an outside opinion by someone you trust really comes in handy because that'll help you solidify what's working and what's not working. Um,
Absolutely.
what I was going to ask you was, so you've made all these feature films. What do you wish you'd known when you started making feature films?
Um, I think today, I mean, if it can be helpful, because I always think like ignorance is bliss, especially when you're doing your first feature, because if you don't have like certain experience, you are more, how can I say, you are less chained by the rules or by everything, and you experiment more. Even failure is very very important, and doing mistakes. um I think sometimes like it's again, this is like more of a tricky question for me, because I think like what to know is especially when it comes to indie films, when you have like 1 week to shoot the film, when you have like 10 days maximum to shoot the film, is to how to communicate with every department, which is something that I learned how to be, helpful to every department, because there are like films, for example, if I'm doing the blocking with the actors and there's like set design and they are building all the props and everything, I think like that's the most important thing. Um, because even if you have a tight schedule, when every department is like running up to speed, and everyone feels free like to speak or to add their input, I think like that's essential. And more, another thing is like how location is very important, and the use that you can make. But this is something that I learned, or I want to say I'm still learning, because I'm happy to keep learning. That I learned from Piglet, Bait, and other movies, how to make a use of location, of every tools that you have on location, how to have the actors interacting with what they have, to not make everything static, to make everything more interactive, and the location feels like sort of alive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, both of those, just to build on those, that communication, like you say, when you're under stress and you've got not a lot of time, that can be quite tough, giving everyone an answer and making sure everyone's happy and you sort of being creative. And I guess my way of dealing with that is preparation, is having lots of conversations before you go into the shoot so that you already have most of those answers sorted out, even if it's just in your own head, because it can get quite noisy when you're trying to direct a movie. And yeah, utilizing the location again. Sometimes it's tempting to treat a location almost like a green screen backdrop. It's just kind of like it's there, and my actors are the thing I'm concentrating on, and they're not. What you're not doing then is putting them into that world that you've built in your film. So both excellent points there. I'll just finish off by asking a question I ask everybody. Do you have a motto? Do you have any kind of like mantra that applies to your filmmaking?
There are like there are like one is a sentence that I heard from Sam Raimi, and it kind of like reminds me what you said before, which is uh, shoot a film, head it, show it to an audience, go to the next one. Don't get too stuck on those like little tiny mistakes. Everything is a bliss somehow. It's a blessing in disguise because you see, okay, I'm going to do better on the next one. So this is very important. And I had a conversation with many filmmakers that are like stuck in post for ages, or they are not shooting until everything is perfect. Until they don't have the budget for extra couple of days. I'm like, go and shoot it. It will teach you something. That's like my motto. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other one I
And
find, talking to students, sorry to interrupt you, on
yeah,
that point is a lot of students get stuck on their first short film. Is they make their short film and they spend so much time on it trying to make it perfect that they never actually finish it. I found that quite a lot with student films. Never gets finished because they're trying to make it so perfect. Sorry, carry on. What were you going to say?
no, I think like no, you said something interesting because I think like the beauty somehow is in imperfection, and also when it comes to filmmaking, those little imperfections, these are like essential on a film. If you try to make it perfect, I think like instead of focusing on having like a film that is perfect, where like the shots are perfect, where like I had like films with where the shots were like a little bit shaky, but it doesn't matter as long as you communicating and you showing the audience that you're communicating something in your language. I think like that's the most important thing for a director, the way you communicate with the audience. What is your film language? And I found myself like that I have certain shots, certain things, certain camera movement, or tones that are like essentially and slowly are becoming my film language. So I think like that's very essential. It's like understanding your film language is more important. Understanding and showing to the audience, even with all the imperfections and everything. This they will, they will get better film after film after film. But if you don't move forward to the next film, you will never learn. And also because Howard is a very technical job at the same time, apart creative. So there are like all these technicalities that the only way to learn them is like to go and do more films.
Thanks for listening. I hope that was useful. If you're interested in hearing from another filmmaker who's made a kind of dark comedy that's been released, you could listen to How to Get a Famous Actor in Your 30k Micro Budget Movie with Mitchell Tolliday. In the episode, Mitchell talks about how he put his project together and also how he managed to persuade Simon Callow to appear in it. See you on the next one.